Okay, let me just make sure this is recording. I've had some issues with my screen recording lately, but I deleted a bunch of files, so I'm hoping we're good. Yes, this is recording right now. Okay. All right, welcome guys. Brian, I see your question there about the drawing tile. I will show you how to put that up there. For those of you who are watching this as a recording or on YouTube, this is a somewhat informal, impromptu presentation by request from some of the members in our Discord group. The Discord group is currently free, and I'll post a link that you can use to join it if you'd like to. We primarily do intraday futures trading, and some of the folks in the group were asking about some of my settings that I use for the volume profile and how I set it up. And so that's our goal to go over today. And I'll answer any other questions for those of you guys that are here live on any other NinjaTrader related settings. I may cover a little bit of how I use the profile as well, if we have time. But primarily what we're after here is these two things that you see. So currently I just have an NQ chart up. I don't normally trade NQ personally, but my ES chart has a lot of other lines on it that I didn't want to clear off. So I'm just using NQ so it's blank. And primarily what we're after here is how we set up this profile over here, which is my drawing tool profile. You can draw this over any section of the chart that you want. And so what are the settings that I use for that? And then I'm also going to cover the profile you see here on the right-hand margin, which is a delta profile. And both of these are built-in tools to NinjaTrader that you have access to as long as you have the lifetime license. So they're part of the order flow tools. So that's what we're going to set up. So what I've done ahead of time is, and this is something that for those of you guys that are new to NinjaTrader is also important to know, because I'm gonna try to set these back to their defaults, but I didn't want to, I actually don't even remember like all the settings I use for this. So to make sure I still have my profiles the way I want, I right click on these and go to properties. And what's really important, this I didn't know this at first on NinjaTrader. It took me a while before I learned this, but you can click down here, it'll say template and then save. And so I just saved this one. I think it's the same as here where it says outline, but just in case I said June 22, it's actually not the 22nd, but that's, whatever. June 2022, that's why I put that, outline. So I know that that's these settings before I started this presentation, because what I'm gonna actually do is reset this now. And I'll show you, hopefully we'll get it back to looking somewhat close to this. And again, I didn't like prepare this. I set mine up a long time ago and just sort of kept it, but this is the default. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is just remove this for the time being. We'll set it up new. Got some posts coming in on the stream. Okay. Just people saying they're missing out, no big deal. And same thing here with this delta one. So this is going to be under indicators. Again, I'm going to go in, we're going to do this all from scratch, but I just wanted to show you how to save these things. So again, under template, I have this saved as delta at price. Okay. But I want to make sure that, hopefully that the resetting doesn't lose my save. Okay, yeah, perfect. So this would be the traditional settings for the volume profile indicator. It shows up way over there. So we're going to get that all switched back. And we're going to start from scratch though. So I'm going to take everything off the chart. Okay. So basically one of the profiles that I'm using is actually a drawing tool. And then the other one is an indicator. So because Brian asked, how do I get this drawing tool thing up here? Because this is super handy. So anytime I want to draw a profile, and again, we have to change these settings, but anytime I want to draw a profile, I can just click up here. Whoops, that should have reset to default. Okay. So the drawing tool tile, first of all, you're going to go under indicators. And you actually see I have it already configured here, drawing tool tile. So I don't know where these Apex ones come in with the trade copier. It's really kind of obnoxious. You can ignore all those, but scroll down to the D's, you see here drawing tool tile. And then what you just do is under the parameters where it says drawing tools. So, you can set however number of rows you want. So I have 3 rows, 1, 2, 3. And that just gives you, again, how many rows. You can have 20 if you want this to just be one long thing going all the way down. I like it to just be this little square up here. You can see, let's see, I have 7 tools on there. So if I change that 3 to 7, you can see how this changes. You can set it up however you want to, depending on how many tools you're using. And then you click here on drawing tools, drop down, and you're just selecting anything that you want. So, I have the tools that I like, but the kind of key one for today is the order flow volume profile is the drawing tool that we're going to use. Okay. You can also just access that drawing tool under the drawing tools section. And as long as you have the lifetime license order flow volume profile, you can also hotkey it like that. Okay. I prefer to click on the drawing tools. Okay. So let's start with that one, because that one's kind of easy. To a certain extent, this one is very usable with its default settings. I don't know why it's not resetting to default every time. It's kind of weird. Let's just, let's do that. Okay. I probably have to resave this as default. That's probably why, but that's okay. All right. So with the default settings, this is what it looks like. And you can see the more opaque area is your value area. And then there's extended lines that come out and tell you the exact value area prices. And then your POC with an extended line that comes out and tells you the POC. And then you have the sort of range of it, right? The high and the low range with extended lines there as well. And then you can make this whatever color you want to. Now, me personally, when I'm looking at composite profiles drawn over the chart like this, I don't really pay much attention to the value area. I'm most concerned about value areas when I'm looking at the total like session profiles, which I keep on a different chart. I keep that on a 30-minute chart where I just have the session profile up. And I'll show you what that looks like too. But on my drawing tool, I personally don't really care whether some of it's more opaque or not. So again, this one you can play around with and make the settings whatever you want to. There's a few things that I want to point out, however. And I'll show you the way I set it up if you want yours to look like mine. I know some people like the way my charts look, and we can set it up that way. So number one, you can see like on NQ, the tick size on NQ, price moves through a lot more ticks on NQ than it does on ES. So ticks per level here is set to 1. And sometimes on NQ, that's a little bit too granular, like it could be hard to look at. So if you change this to like, for instance, 5, you'll see that it smooths out the profile a little bit. And that'll be true also when I use this on ES on larger time frame charts. I don't necessarily need it to be that granular when I'm looking at it on a larger time frame chart, like an hourly chart or a 4-hour chart. So you can change the ticks per level sort of as needed. We'll leave that back to 1. Okay. So profile type, volume, display mode, standard, because this is our drawing tool. We don't need to change anything there. Resolution, you could make this tick resolution. I think I do on mine. I believe that just makes it as the way it's updating. But that's going to also slow down your machine a little bit more. Just be aware of that. Tick resolution will slow down your machine, but it's going to give you more sort of pinpoint accuracy, especially as the profile is developing. Profile alignment, I keep it left. If you switched it to right, it would just look like a mirror image of itself. Now, profile opacity. So what I do here, you're going to see there's profile opacity and value area opacity. So value area is this, bolder area, and it's set to 80, so it's less transparent. If you don't really want to see the distinction between value area and the rest of the profile, what you might do, depending on how you want it, is just change them both to be the same. So if I make the value area also 40, you can see the whole thing becomes kind of more transparent and a little bit less distracting when you're looking at it over your price action, if you want to really be able to pay attention to the price action. I find that really helpful. So changing that transparency. If you unclick Show Value Area, I believe it'll do the same thing. Let me see what happens if I change that back to 80. Yeah, it does the same thing. So that's another way you can do it. Okay, just unclick that. And they'll both be set to the profile opacity. Now your color for POC, that's going to be this, the line kind of going across here. Again, colors, you just change whatever you want to. Color for profile, change whatever you want to. Personally, the one thing that I do is under display mode, instead of standard, I like outline. And you can see how that changes it. Now again, you can see the opacity of this outline is a little bit different. And that's where, I'm not sure if this setting is what affects that. I believe it's actually further down where we change the line colors. Because if I change this, oh yeah, that does affect it too. So for some reason, the show value area thing doesn't affect the, when you have it in outline mode, but I like it in outline mode personally. And that's just under this display mode setting. And then I like to make mine, a little bit of a brighter color as well. And that gives me my profile. So pretty straightforward. But again, you can see in outline mode, like it's kind of on NQ, it's really granular. So if you go into ticks per level, you might change this to something like 5 on NQ. And you get it a little bit easier to look at outline. Now, I want this to be a little bit darker too, because when it's in outline mode, I personally don't feel the need to have it as transparent. So you can see it a little bit clearer. Okay, that's personal preference. Do it however you want to. The other thing for me is I personally don't like these lines for value area and the lines for the highs and lows. So we're going to go in and we're going to remove those. And that's under lines. Now, I do keep the POC line. I just don't like this color. I like magenta. Under value area, all we got to do is unclick visible. This is all under the lines section. If I hit apply, you can see those lines go away. And then under the range, same deal. We just unclick visible and those lines go away. And then the anchor, when you're in outline mode, there's nothing there anyway. But you could change that, if you're in other modes. I don't actually even know what it does because I don't use it. And that's it for my profile drawing tool. That's it. And then if you have it here in your drawing tool tile, you're good to go. Super simple, Brian. And then you'll see that if I load this up with my previously saved version and hit apply, it's going to look pretty identical. I just have this set to, I have the opacity set to 100 because I like it really visible. And because I normally use it on ES, I have ticks per level set at 1. But again, if I'm using it on NQ, you can do 3 or 5 or whatever. It just smooths it out a little bit. Trying to get precise to the tick entries on NQ is sort of ridiculous anyway. Okay, and again, we can talk a little bit about how I use this. I think most of you guys that are on my regular live streams where I'm trading the open, you get a feel for how I use this anyway. But that's that setup. Real simple. The other one's a little bit trickier. So let's go ahead and load up. We're going to go under indicators. And again, we're going to go order flow volume profile. Actually, before I go into this, does anybody who's here live have questions about the drawing tool and how to set that up? It should be pretty straightforward. Again, I'll post this recording on YouTube, probably not today, but I might get to it tomorrow or Monday or something like that. Okay. All right, as long as there's no questions there, we'll go on. We're going to go to order flow volume profile again under indicators. And let's make sure this is default, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. So this is the default when you first turn this on. Let me get rid of the drawing tool so we don't have that in our way. So if I scrunch this up, basically what you're seeing is at the start of each session, this anchors to the right-hand side and builds out towards the left. And that's what this looks like by default, very similar to the default drawing tool settings as far as the value area and all the colors and all that kind of stuff. But we want to change this to show the delta profile, which is a tool that I use a lot. And I'll make a separate video for you guys on how to interpret delta profile and how you might use it to enhance your trading, so on and so forth. So again, let's check out the settings here. And first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to anchor this to the right-hand side. And so under, let's see here, profile alignment, we're going to go right, hit apply. You can see it's anchored to the right-hand side. But we're also going to change a bunch of other stuff. So first of all, setup, profile type. The default is volume. And, oh, we can actually keep that the same. It's the display mode we want to change. And we're going to change that to delta. Hit apply. It's going to take a minute to load because it's totally different data. So now you can see your delta is right there on the right-hand side. Delta type, bid ask, I don't change anything there. Profile period. The default is to do the session profile. You certainly can keep it that way if you'd like. What I prefer to do is use a composite and compose by. I do visible screen range. I find that to be the most practical for my purposes of the delta profile. Hit apply. Voila. Now we can see it's anchored all the way to this right margin, which I also find to be more visibly appealing. Now we want to get rid of the actual volume so that we're just left with the delta, because the delta is sort of here and a little bit hard to see. Again, it's NQ, so if we want to, you can do the same thing, ticks per level. We'll change this to 5 just for the purposes of visibility here on the NQ, but on ES, I keep it at 1. Yes, Chris, I will put this on YouTube as well. It'll be a public thing. So again, ticks per level, I'm changing to 5 because I'm looking at NQ right now, but normally I would keep that at 1. Again, value area, percentage, completely irrelevant to me when it comes to delta. So you can change this or not. If you make it, for instance, 100%, and then the whole thing will just look the same. And this just takes a little bit longer to load. If I, here, let's just do this really quick. If I zoom in, it'll be less data that it's trying to grab. There we go. Okay. So now here we are. We've got display mode delta. We've got profile period composite composed by visible screen range. You can get rid of the value area by changing it to 100. Now what we want to do is we want to go in here and we want to get rid of the actual profile itself. And I actually have to remember how to do that because, again, I set this up so long ago. So definitely we want to get rid of the lines, and that's going to be the same thing as before. We don't need a POC for the delta profile. We don't need, where'd they go? There they are. Don't need POC. We don't need value area lines. So we're just unclicking the visible checkbox on all of these. We don't need the range lines. Those are already unclicked. And I should get rid of most of that stuff. And then I believe what we have to do here is I don't think we need to change any of these things. So I just have to remember how I think it may just be that what I'm doing for color for profile is making these transparent. But I might also just be able to say uncheck value area, uncheck POC. What happens if I do that? Yeah, no, that's not what I want. I do want to uncheck POC. Okay. So one thing you can do is go into all these and just change them to transparent. So color for profile, transparent. The buys and sells, I think we want to keep the same. I don't really want to mess with those. But if I make that all transparent, I should be left with just the delta. But I'm going to go in and see my saved version. Yep, so there I am, left with just the delta. But I'll go and check in my saved version and make sure I did it the same way, because I believe the one downside if you're just making things transparent is you're still technically collecting that data. So it still technically may affect your speed, right? Brian, I'm not sure what you're asking there. A volume up there. You're talking about this one up here under profile type volume. Yeah, so this, I don't mess with this. I don't actually even know what these different ones do. Yeah, I don't mess with that. Really, I just want to make sure I'm getting the display mode delta and then just getting rid of the rest of the profile. So let's do this. Let's save this one as our test version. And let's compare and contrast to my settings that I normally use, which is delta at price, and see if I did it the same way. So here, so you can see profile type volume, delta, composite, visible screen range. And yep, all I did was basically go in color for POC, transparent, color for profile, transparent. That's essentially all I'm doing there. And then again, you can change your buys and sells to whatever color you want to, but that gives you your delta profile. So basically exactly the same as what we just did. So really easy. Go back to this test version. Just let that load for a second. There you go. And because it's visible screen range, you can see as I scroll, it changes. Now the other thing that I like to do, and again, my settings are going to be set up for ES, but we'll throw this on here too, is I like, in combination with the delta profile, to use this order flow trade detector. And so what this does is tells you on the chart where large trades are occurring. And yeah, so this must just be the default that I use. I may have changed it on my ES chart and just not saved the settings. Base marker size on visible range. So everything's pretty much default here. You can change based on the instrument you're trading, the minimum volume for marker and your minimum marker size. That's really more of a visual thing. But what this does now is as we're watching for instance, you can see this large delta here, and we can look across the chart and say, oh, that occurred right here, right? These three sort of areas where these trades came in is where this delta imbalance was. You can see there were large trades down here, but not as significant of a delta imbalance, sort of congested in that area. So it's nice to know, especially when you're in like a range like this where price may have overlapped the same area a couple times. And so for instance, if you see, larger delta here, you can look across the chart and say, oh, that happened back here. Or sometimes it happened way back here. Maybe price has already traded through it a few times and may not hold as much significance to you. So usually there's going to be a correlation. Not always, like you can see there's some delta way up here and there is no large trade marker. But again, I don't have this large trade detector calibrated for NQ. And NQ is a little bit different than ES. The other thing that I like to do, you can see how price is like going right into this margin here. It makes it a bit hard to see. This is something that took me forever to figure out. If you right click on your time scale down here, your time axis, and go to properties, and then right side margin, and change that to something like 100 or even 200, and it gets your price off of that profile. So you can see as you scroll through now, the price isn't being hidden, right? So here I can see the larger delta, and I can see that that was very recent. It didn't happen way back here, right? It was right here. So it still might be a significant level that I want to pay attention to. And you can see that that level maybe also had some significance in the past. See, here, even back here, maybe a little bit, back here, maybe a little bit. So it gives you confluences, okay? So that's how I set those up, guys. Super easy.